Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a special speaker joining us for some discussions on the COVID-19 situation and how it's been affecting the food service industry. My name is Sara Pearson. I head up our COREcruitment North American division here based out of Vancouver in Canada. So over the last few months, COREcruitment's been hosting a series of webinars. To date, we've done over 40 with over 55,000 views on our videos so far, so which is quite impressive. So today we've asked Bradlee to come and join us to kind of share his kind of opinions and thoughts and insights on the food service industry. So Bradlee, if you can start with a bit of an introduction about yourself, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you for having me, first of all. I recently joined a company that I was with for about 2.5 years, which I left 4 years ago. For the last 25 years, not to confuse people, I've worked for STARR Restaurants, left for 3.5 years from 13 to 17, and then returned from 17 to about a month ago. And I'm now back with OTG, which is a hospitality company, has about 300 businesses in airports around the country, all focused on hospitality, food and beverage, all very unique, with proprietary concepts and partnerships throughout the country.
Okay, and you joined the company just this month, was it?
I did. I'm actually in my second week now.
Okay.
I was invited by the CEO quite unexpectedly to start up a new division within the company, still in the airport space, but something completely different, and too new to really talk about, but it's very exciting enough for me to leave a company that I consider to be one of the best in the world at producing unique restaurant experiences.
Okay, and your job title I noticed is still TBD? Yeah,
I don't have a title. I read online this morning, it was funny, don't worry about a title, think about being a good leader, a good father, a good parent, or whatnot. So
yeah.
Now I'm satisfied with that.
There you go. Okay, so we'll just get started off with the first question here then. So where do you think the food service and hospitality industry in the US market is at currently, and how do you think it's kind of reacted and adapted to the pandemic?
So it depends on where you look. In the area where I live and where STARR does most of its business, the New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. Area, the Northeast, if you will, it's in a very, very bad place. Devastated, for sure. Points south in the United States are in a better place, but still well under what they would ever have expected to be 4 or 5 months ago. If they'd looked ahead and said, well, in July we're going to be here, they would have never believed it. They would have laughed. I think every sector of the hospitality industry is in a very similar place. And it's I'm not quite sure how we're going to come out of it.
Yeah, scary times.
Mm-hmm.
And what levels of trade do you think the industry is at currently, and how do you think it's going to look going forward?
Well, according to the industry and looking at the trends, we're now in the so let's say we're about 20 points less behind than we were, let's say, a month ago, but well under half of what would have been expected, at the beginning of the year for the time period that we're in now. It feels much worse when I see that. I actually think, really, we're only 50 or 55% behind last year. That doesn't sound possible. My gut feeling is we're more like 85% behind, but just remember that I work in a very niche sector of our industry, even though STARR has 40 businesses in hotels and street-facing locations, in 5 cities.
Yeah. And what about the airport side of things? I know you're quite new to your role with OTG. Have you noticed a massive difference on the airport side of things?
So it's in a very similar place, very similar to what's happening on the street. Most businesses in this region and regions north are closed. Very, very few businesses are actually open, even though the airports themselves, of course, are open. And there are people who are flying. And as local restrictions are lifted, we will see those businesses reopen along with their street side counterparts.
And what about dining in airports? Is that still closed down altogether, or is there kind of?
So if an airport is located within a jurisdiction where street-facing restaurants are not allowed to operate, then the airport restaurant is not allowed to operate either.
Okay, okay. And how do you think the kind of US hospitality side of things is going to manage like the social distancing, and what kind of tools and kind of IT solutions are you seeing coming in with OTG?
Well, I mean, technology is definitely going to play a huge role in helping the strongest survive. And OTG has always been fully committed to technologies even before they were in the mainstream. We're definitely going to be harnessing not only our own proprietary technology that we develop ourselves, as this company's been developing for 15 years, but also partnering with other groups and other companies to provide our customers with better and better ways in which to enjoy and feed themselves and enjoy their time in an airport. We are the first company in the country to employ Amazon's Just Go technology, which some people may have seen in their stores, Amazon Go stores. OTG currently has 2 locations. The first one opened actually the day before the COVID crisis was named a pandemic nationally. So it opened and shut very quickly.
Yeah.
Now there are 2 locations ready to go as soon as the governor of New Jersey says that it's okay.
Okay. And is there any kind of specific technologies that are kind of standing out in terms of like for the safety of the guests and the staff?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting. Having just left STARR just about a month ago, I was a part of the team that developed that company's response and what kind of safeties were going to be required and provided to both guests and staff, crew members alike. And in reviewing what the OTG team has put together, it's almost identical. Aside from the way that the iPad technology is utilized, point of sale and menus is a huge part of what the industry is doing. It's a touch point that I think everyone is a bit nervous about. And, and OTG is definitely at the forefront of that. We utilize in all of our restaurants, we utilize iPads at every seat for ordering. So there are servers and there is a staff that is taking care of you, but the process of ordering and paying is all done via an iPad at your table, which you can also utilize for other things. In this case, our touch point is really touching the iPad itself. Even though they're wiped down and sanitized, I wouldn't want to touch one that I knew someone an hour earlier had been to. So we've actually developed a proprietary stylus that is shrink wrapped, and we'll be sterilizing and shrink wrapping those and supplying them to each and every guest. Besides that, I would say that the techniques and the tactics that OTG is using in our restaurants are very similar to what the best companies are doing nationally.
And what about masks and things like that?
Absolutely. A mask requirement will be there for guests. I believe that won't even be a choice, and there won't even be a choice in the matter for us on that. But our staff will absolutely be full sanitation, mask use 100% of the time that they're on duty, and full sanitization, both daily, hourly, and after each guest use.
Perfect. And how have you been finding, I guess, the communication with your teams, the people who are off on furlough? Obviously, big company, a lot of team members. What have you guys been doing to engage with your teams while they've been off?
So, I'm so new to OTG, I can't say firsthand. I know a little bit just from having a few conversations with people. We're all working remotely, and I hit the ground a week and a half ago, and having a new division to plan and start wanting to use every minute of this, I'll say, free time to be efficient. I haven't done a lot of fact finding or digging on that. I've had a few of my former colleagues at OTG reach out to me since I rejoined, and they seem to be well. I do know that OTG was able to take care of people, actually, and surprisingly to me, more so than a lot of my street-facing colleagues, not just STARR, but other companies were able to.
Okay, great. And how do you feel, how do you think it's going to be getting, like your hourly staff back in, when you're calling them back off furlough? Do you think you're going to see some challenges to get your teams back into place?
So the whole talent development and acquisition part of OTG is being revitalized. They've been working on that for a few months, since even before the COVID crisis started. And now, a brand new leader has been brought in to handle talent acquisition. Somebody actually that I've enjoyed working with was a part of another company, and that company, unfortunately, is no longer in business, and he was hired by OTG. So I don't have a ton of facts in that. I do know from talking to a couple of the project managers that actually used to work for me when I was at OTG before, that is going to be their biggest challenge. Just like street-facing restaurants, they are not going to be able to open 45 restaurants and quick service restaurants in just the Newark terminal alone all at once. It's going to have to be staged, and they're in the midst of doing that right now. And it's really more than anything, it's from a people perspective, because not only in an airport do you have to find and locate and source and then onboard and train, you also have to do a little thing called badging. They have to be able to get onto the terminal legally, and that adds a whole nother wrinkle to it. So they're in full swing now, although they haven't pushed any buttons yet because they're legally not able to. So we got a long road ahead of us here in the next couple months.
Absolutely. And what do you kind of envision, like airport dining like in future in terms of like guest experience?
So I believe that there's an opportunity here. I mean, when you think about what has happened to the takeaway opportunity as a guest, as a customer in any city, any town, you can now call upon the best restaurateur in your town, and absolutely, they'll be happy to bag it up, whether it's dinner for four or something to take home and cook, or an individual meal. Everyone's got their own little angle. And I believe it's provided an opportunity for takeaway and really upgrading packaging and ideas and thoughts and what's available. I think that just like street-facing restaurants in an airport are going to be, there's going to be a ton of competition. There's going to be less capacity. And what is that going to do? It's going to create the need for greater care, greater quality, and more focus. You're no longer being distracted by as many of the masses. One could look at that as a huge pain or a great opportunity. I like the opportunity involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any particular sectors in the food service industry that you think will come out stronger than others after the crisis?
I think that, well, quite frankly, not to be funny, bars.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that
Yeah.
most of the people I know are looking forward to is going to a bar, and even if they can't sit down, and ordering something, or just being able to experience, no matter what the capacities are, the distances are, just being able to experience the socialization. After that, I really think it's that neighborhood favorite or that city favorite, that everyday place that you always like to go, maybe at least once a month or more. I think those will be the restaurants that will be in the highest demand.
Yeah, for sure. I know I'm desperate to get to a bar myself, so totally agree with that. What do you think has been the most positive impact of the outbreak, and again, anything that you've learned from this pandemic?
Oh, absolutely. One thing that I realized very, very quickly after March 13th, when everything in our region came to a grinding halt, is that this was an opportunity to see people at their best. This is when people are going to show who they are from a thoughtfulness perspective, and how they really view the people around them, and what they actually do and what they stand for. And I got a chance working in Philadelphia and helping to get 8 businesses off the ground in a takeaway perspective, takeout perspective, working with a very small team of people whom I'd not worked that closely with in so long. Because when you're developing the number of restaurants that STARR develops, and you have 40 restaurants, and you're all these cities, and you have global responsibilities for the whole company, you don't get that opportunity to work as closely with people. And it really kind of brought me back a little bit to my roots, and really understanding not to be goofy, but the needs of people, and to really seek to understand. And you can say that you care, but it's really what you do that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to the government support, what are your kind of thoughts and, I guess, comments on what's been available, not available? How have you found that side?
Well, I'll speak to the PPP program, for instance. I have never seen, and obviously it's a time like none other, so this isn't a criticism necessarily, but that program was put together so hastily and changed so rapidly so many times. It was, in the end, I believe it helped, but in the beginning it almost hurt, because I know a lot of people, not just STARR, that made commitments to people that they didn't even know in the end, let's say 2, 3, and 4 weeks later, if they could even fulfill those commitments. Everybody wanted to put their people back to work, even though we didn't have the ability to open based on the reality of the disease and the government regulations in place. I think that the stimulus plan that was added to unemployment was incredibly necessary. But when you couple that with the Paycheck Protection Program, it's almost like a gun with 2 barrels, one pointing in each direction. There's no, it's hard to win. You call somebody and you say, hey, good news, you have a job, and you're offering them less money than they're making on the stimulus plan. Yeah. It was a huge eye-opener for me. I'm just glad that the vast majority of people that I work with are all safe, and and most of them have the money that they need to get by. It's the people out there that aren't able to participate in programs like that I'm the most concerned with, and I hope to goodness that we can get back to work as quickly as possible so that they're okay.
Mm-hmm. And I was reading this morning about, obviously there's some states that have opened sooner than others, and down in Florida and Texas particularly, they had quite a big increase of kind of positive tests of COVID this week. How do you think, I guess people are now talking about a second wave? Did they open too soon, too fast? What are your thoughts on the reopening plans and the timings of things, and how you guys go about that?
Well, I was actually talking to one of my colleagues this morning about this. If people think that by reopening we're not going to see at least a small spike, I think that we need to be prepared for that. I'm not going to say whether that's right or wrong, but I think it just is. And I think that up until there is a vaccine, I think that that'll be the case no matter what. Obviously, some jurisdictions, having a colleague based, for instance, who was New York based, moved to Houston right before, about 6 weeks after COVID really became full bore in the Northeast, the middle of March. So she moved at the beginning of May, and her words to me, Houston, once they reopened, it was as if it never happened. We can't do that. We need to maintain certain protocols. We can't forget. Yeah. But I believe that if we go ahead and follow the path that's happening right now, each jurisdiction and state taking care of itself based on the facts, and we follow the simple protocols that we're living by now, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've heard that. I've heard a few situations of that. It's like it never happened down in Miami, I've heard as well. So that's scary. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, yeah, we're basically just going to kind of wrap up on our questions here now. So if there's any kind of thoughts or anything you want to share, or any inspirational bits and pieces you want to share with anybody out there?
Well, I mean, I think that this is a time more than ever where we need to understand how important people are. And that I know that in certain cases, as much as I thought that I was all about the people, I actually wasn't. I was all about myself more than I thought. I think everybody needs to take a good look at themselves and remember, you must have had a thought in the last few weeks, or taken an opportunity to help someone that you may not have taken before. Don't forget that. Let's maintain some of the good energy that has come out of this, and the self-awareness that has come out of this. I think it's vital, and it would be a shame for us to waste that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Well, yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. Really insightful comments, and yeah, we really enjoyed having you. Thank you so much, Bradlee.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.